Okay, everyone, the time is now 5:35, so we'll go ahead and get started. We have about 20 people present, including one note-taking device. So we're really excited with the turnout and look forward to hearing from you all. My name is Josephine Ayankoya, and I work as the Equity and Inclusion Officer for the City of Hayward. And in a moment, you will hear introductions from our full team, who you will see on the screen. So first, if you have not done so already, please select your language channel. This will ensure that you're able to speak during the public comment section of the meeting. For Spanish, we had the announcement a few minutes ago of how to enter the Spanish room, but you can select the globe and then go to Spanish. If you are in an English room, you will hear English currently, but you will again need to select your English channel room to be able to speak. So if you have not done so, please go ahead and select English or Spanish now. So welcome everyone. This is the fifth of a series of 5 town halls for the Russell City Reparative Justice Project. And I'll talk a bit more about the history of the project. I want to start by saying thank you for your time and for your interest and input. Your feedback is really critical to our public engagement to shape proposals being considered for reparative justice solutions by the City of Hayward City Council. I'll briefly go over the agenda before we go into introductions to give you a sense of what we will cover in our 2-hour time block. So we have 2 big topics that consist of a series of more detailed recommendations. The first will be heritage preservation. I'll talk more about what that means, but it encompasses recommendations around public art, ethnic studies curricula, and looking at preserving the culture of Russell City. And the second combines ideas for both a community center and a few community benefit programs. So far, the ones that have been named have been environmental justice and health programs. So we'll start with an opening with the background information, introductions, and ground rules. We'll have introductory polls to get a sense of who's in the room. We'll go into a background being discussed today, which is heritage preservation. And then we'll have a series of polls and public comment, and that's your opportunity to give input. And following, we will talk about the ideas around the community center and various public benefit programs. We will close out the meeting with some announcements about next steps. And before we leave, we'll ask for your support in ranking potential eligible parties for the 2 benefits that could be coming out of these 2 proposals. So this time is really to hear from you. It's very important that we make space to hear from the community. This has been a community-led process from the very beginning to really wrap our minds around what does it look like to repair the harm done to Russell City and the eminent domain tied to that and the downstream generational effects of that. So we appreciate all your time and energy. And now I would like to pause to bring up the team here. I'm going to take down my slides and give the team a chance to introduce themselves, starting with one of our assistant city managers, Regina.
Good evening, all interested parties and Russell City descendants and former residents. My name is Regina Youngblood, and as Josephine said, I'm one of 2 assistant city managers with the City of Hayward, and I'm here to support the work, the very important and valuable work that you are doing here tonight.
Thank you, Regina. And as I mentioned, my name is Josephine Ayankoya. I serve as the Equity and Inclusion Officer, and I'm really honored to be a part of this project. Next, I will turn it over to my colleague, Tim.
Hi, my name is Tim Loans. I'm a systems analyst in IT, and I'm happy to be here tonight and help out and facilitate the Zoom.
Thank you, Tim. Eric?
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Pearson. I'm the Environmental Services Manager for the City of Hayward, and I'll be helping out with the public comment portion of the meeting today.
Thank you, Eric. And last but not least, helping us ensure our meeting is accessible as advised by our steering committee and community members, we'll bring up Louisa. Okay, and Louisa, actually, would you mind just coming back into the English room? I'm not sure if folks heard you who are not in the Spanish room. I think you may be muted, Louisa.
Good evening. My name is Luisa Carrera, and I'm your Spanish interpreter this evening.
Thank you so much, Louisa. Really appreciate all 4 of you for being here. It definitely takes a village to do this right and to make sure we have the support to thoroughly unpack, analyze, and reflect back your feedback. So with that, I'll get back to our presentation and some background information, and then you'll again hear from our team throughout the town hall tonight. So first, we like to start with some community agreements with our group of about 23 people. We want to make sure we're on one accord with what's expected of our Zoom space. So first is that this is a zero tolerance space for any type of racism, hate, or disrespect. And staff reserve the right to remove people from the meeting if that arises. If you have any concerns, feel free to use the chat feature to alert staff of any behavior that is inappropriate. We also ask that we all bring an understanding of the emotional labor being acts of community. We are talking about a harm that happened, something that can be really tied to long-term impacts and also just a big loss for many people. So we ask, and we also understand that for many people, you've been doing the work to share your feedback, to share advice, and it's very complex work, sometimes messy work. So we ask that we keep a spirit of compassion for the emotional labor that the work takes for the community as well as for staff. We ask that you step up, step back. Your participation is key. We'll never ask you to do anything you don't want to do, but this is a space to hear from you so that when we do draft proposals and ultimately share them with City Council for a determination, we can truly feel confident that we're reflecting the feedback of the public. So there will be many opportunities to participate. You can do public comment where you speak verbally and we can all hear you. You'll also have plenty of opportunities to use the polls. So even if you don't feel comfortable speaking out loud, we ask that your written feedback be shared is just as valuable. If you are calling in from a device and your name is not present, or even if your name is present, we do ask that you introduce yourself for the record when you're making your public comment. Again, please have compassion as well as respect for one another. This meeting is being recorded. So you would, by being in this meeting, agree to being recorded as written feedback that will all be kept anonymous and compiled in terms of themes. But if you are on camera, obviously, or sorry, on audio and speaking, you will be recorded and that recording will be on YouTube as well as the project website for the public to see. So if you do not feel comfortable with that, please feel free to share your writing, your feedback in writing, which will be anonymous. And then finally, if you have any questions, you can always email the project email, which is russellcity-rjp@hayward-ca.gov. We'll drop that into the chat. If Eric or Tim could share that in the chat for folks, that would be great. And we're happy to follow up with you and we can continue to share that email throughout the meeting. So if you are okay with that, welcome and we'll get started. So this will be familiar to those of you who've been to the other 4 town halls or perhaps have done earlier engagement this calendar year. But I would like to give some background to the origin of this project and how we got to where we are today. So in November of 2021, so almost 3 years ago, the Hayward City Council unanimously voted to approve a resolution to apologize to Black, Indigenous, Latinx, people of color, communities that have been marginalized for the city's role in either implicit or explicit perpetuation of systemic racism. And with that, there was a desire to look more locally at what City of Hayward could do for the needs in the City of Hayward. So in January of 2022, during a strategic roadmap session where the leaders from across the city map out priorities, City Council directed staff to work with survivors and descendants of Russell City, regardless of race, to determine what appropriate restitution looked like. So 2 things that are important about that. It was expected that there was a community-led process, which there was, including this kind of space where we're centering community voice in our proposals and ultimately a recommendation, but also that this is a reparative justice project regardless of race because it's based on, it's a place-based project looking at the proximity to where people lived and how they experienced harm as a result of the eminent domain decisions around Russell City. So there was about a almost 2-year process with a steering committee of elected community leaders. They were both descendants of former residents and a couple of former residents who helped to guide the process to a point of having a set of preliminary recommendations for consideration. Back in March of 2024, there was a work session with City Council to receive these recommendations. And there were a list of 26 recommendations that were developed with steering committee input, public input, and developed by a consultant. And then also there were a few addendums that individual steering committee members shared to give their ideas about what restitution should look like. two topics, you will see some of those specific recommendations. And at that work session, because there were a lot of different ideas and some were overlapping, council directed staff to narrow down the proposed recommendations, to expand community input, and to give them a set of scalable options for how to implement these great ideas. So with the proposals that you'll see, we kind of went from that big list of 26 to 10 ideas. So in this series of the 5 town halls, we've been discussing the buckets of different categories and needs and different types of reparations or reparative justice solutions. And our goal is to really refine what that means. We had a meeting back in March to close out the Russell City Reparative Justice Project Steering Committee. And one of the key areas of feedback was that the draft recommendations needed to be further refined and further detailed. So this is the space and the time for us to get the information needed. So like I mentioned, the 26 recommendations were consolidated to 10 topics based on community meetings, based on feedback from the Russell City Reparative Justice Project Steering Committee, and also based on City Council direction. The implementation proposals will basically build on all the feedback to date. So that 2-year period of time where different community members were consulted to give feedback, we have not lost that information. We're working to refine it to really get clarity on what we want City Council to say yay or nay to. And that's where we are now. So implementation proposals will primarily be based off what we hear in these town halls, where there are gaps or maybe very vague ideas. We will probably pull more from the past work. So this is just to say it's really an opportunity in these this final town hall to really be clear about what specifically do you want to be going to council, for whom and how. So our goals for tonight are really to hear from you. So we are saving the majority of this 2-hour meeting to hear from our attendees. We're super grateful for all of you for being here. And the goal is to inform the development of these proposals. We will do a qualitative data analysis to identify priorities. So what that means is we'll be looking at what people said, how often they said them, and in what context they said them to group what seems to be priorities. And those can be priorities for specific parts of the proposal. It can also be things like, well, hey, there weren't strong ideas around this proposal, so it may be a lower priority. So again, it really helps us when you have things in writing, especially, and before every discussion, there'll be some silent reflection time. It also helps us to speak up and share ideas, and that can often inspire others to share their ideas. And again, your feedback will be analyzed after the meeting, but kept anonymous. So we will not say who said what. We will just group the overall themes and how often we heard them to advise City Council. As I mentioned, there are 2 proposals being discussed tonight. The first will be heritage preservation, and then we'll go into the community center idea as well as community benefit programs. It's important to note that these are a broad range of different ideas, and you'll see what I mean in a few minutes. So there are several different elements. There will be one proposal for each topic. So if some of those elements are higher priority or lower priority, we really invite you to voice that in the conversation and help better guide staff. We can only go off of what you tell us. So specifically for the public input, we'll be talking about the what and the why, which will translate into the description and the justification of the town hall meeting. We'll get feedback on the how, so thinking about what are the specific goals and objectives of various proposals. And then we'll go into the who, and that is really talking about who should be eligible for the proposed benefit. This is just an example of what the template will look like for proposals. So they have different sections. And you'll see that there are some guiding questions. We'll have some of these on the slides as well. So as you think about what you want to share, for example, with descriptions, are we describing something that happens one time or is it ongoing? If you have thoughts about how or why they're justified, feel free to share that. And then any kind of core definitions or terms are helpful. When it comes to the how, if there were specific steps or a specific sequence of actions that you recommend, that's helpful. And then for the who, it'd be great to understand, is it one group or multiple groups or a combination of groups that should be eligible for what is being proposed? So you'll have plenty of time to think about this in writing and to speak to it throughout the meeting. Okay. So just a few logistics, and we'll try to remind you about this. We really encourage one person per device for the best experience. Currently, we have about 25 people on the call. We'll do a poll shortly to see how many folks are listening with multiple people who people identify as. But we do recommend that you have your own device so you can participate in the polls in a timely manner. Again, there will be silent polls before each public comment. Please do take time to write down your feedback. And there is a chat where you can chat with staff for any questions, concerns, or ideas that you want to communicate. If for some reason during a poll you're not able to send in your feedback in time, you can use the chat and let us know if you have any technical assistance needs. So we are now going to start with an introductory poll. The idea for this poll is to really understand who's in the room. So you met the staff, now we want to meet you. There will be a poll launched in just a moment with 3 portions. So first we'll ask which group or groups best represent you. You can select multiple. How many people are viewing the event with you? So if you're by yourself, it'll just be you. But if you're with an elder, a family member, or a group, you can share that as well. And then we also will ask you which language you're listening in to get a better understanding of how many folks are listening in English and how many are listening in Spanish. So we will launch that poll, and if you could please complete all 3 questions, that would be appreciated. Thank you. So we're just waiting for about 5 more people. We have 20 of the 25 attendees having completed the survey. 24 attendees, excuse me. So feel free to complete that if you're one of the 4 outstanding who have not done this survey. It may be helpful to note also this survey is what we use to put people into the raffle. So please be sure to share your information. And I see there was one question around being able to mute and unmute. Attendees will be muted until public comment. So you'll only be able to unmute if you are wishing to speak. Otherwise, you will stay muted throughout the meeting. So we're waiting for about 3 more people before we close this survey. So we'll give it about 10 more seconds. If you're wanting to complete your survey, feel free to do so. Okay, I saw about 2 more trickle in and 2 folks abstained, and sometimes the non-response is the response. So thank you all so much. I will close that poll now and just share the results for your reference. So you should be able to see on your device the responses. So we have 100% of the respondents are in the English room. When looking at who's in the room, about 50% of those who responded identify as being a descendant, or sorry, former resident. So 11 of the 22 who responded as 6 of the 22 respondents identified as being descendants, 6 as Hayward residents, 6 as other, and 1 as a student, either at Cal State, East Bay, or Chabot. It looks like the majority of people who responded, 18 out of 21, are listening solo, but we have a few people who have either 1, 2, or 4 people listening with them. So we appreciate you for joining as a group and hope you find it fruitful. Again, for those who are joining as a group on one device, please know that you'll only be able to do 1 poll at a time. So if you're submitting 1 response on behalf of others, feel free to try to get that information for everyone in your response. Thank you. So moving on, we will now get into, sorry, I'm just getting my poll off my screen. Okay. We will now move on to, we already did that, the first proposal being discussed tonight. So this is what we're here for. Again, we want to hear from you. We'll try to give some context to level set and then really leave the floor open. So the first will be heritage preservation. So I'll first start by sharing some of the ideas that came from that list of 26 recommendations that I mentioned. I'll just read through them and have them on the screen for your reference. There are several in this category. So for example, we have memorials or commemoration. So thinking about memorabilia or monuments to honor the memory and contributions of Russell City residents, recognition of Russell City luminaries and documentation of their contributions. So this could be folks from veterans to athletes to entertainers, people that have made contributions to society. And then also thinking about a website to display audio-visual materials. You'll see with the second one, broadly, there's an idea of celebrating contributions, but this conversation can be helpful to understand what does that look like? Is that an event? Is that a website? I'll go on to more in this category. We also have revitalization of Russell City heritage and community spaces. So there were ideas about reinstating Russell City's original street names because the street names have changed. Also ideas around developing green space, parks, recreational hubs, cultural centers, and educational centers. So it's a mix of ideas in that recommendation. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a recommendation for a Russell City Cultural Heritage Preservation Commission. So thinking about an independent body of people to oversee preservation efforts. One thing to really reiterate is that currently none of the proposals have been approved. So if there are proposals that depend on one another, it could be helpful to think about what that means for crafting a proposal. So this is written somewhat with the assumption that several of these heritage ideas will be approved, and if that's the case, there should be a commission to oversee it. There also is ideas around ensuring that there's representation from Russell City descendants as well as cultural specialists. There are very specific initiatives in mind, such as a Russell City Heritage Month, founding a dedicated cultural center and integrating Russell City's heritage into educational curriculum. So you can see there's a very broad range of the topics that are listed here. So it's important to really narrow down on that. We'll get more into the idea of a community or a cultural center in the second proposal. And then I'll continue to share some more of the ideas for heritage preservation. So there's also ideas for education and awareness programs. So this one says in collaboration with statewide partners and educational agencies, there should be a development of school curricula that integrate the history of Russell City, forced displacement, and racial injustice. Concurrently, the recommendation calls for public awareness programs to promote a broad understanding of Russell City's history and also the implications of forced displacement. There's another idea around education and documentation to create a dedicated documentary and textbooks that preserve the community's story and legacy. And then I think the last for this category that came from that list of 26 recommendations is publication and storytelling. So disseminating the history of Russell City through various media, including publications, documentaries, and other types of media. This recommendation calls for advocating for the mandatory inclusion of Russell City's history in educational curricula from grade school to college. Not to put her on the spot, but I just wanted to flag for awareness of the attendees here. I did reach out to my colleague, Dr. Candace Cofield, who directs racial equity for Hayward Unified School District, as a part of the follow-up from the work sessions in March, and also feedback from our steering committee. We did start to look into what it would look like to implement these ideas and also where this may be happening. So during public comment, Dr. Cofield, who's here, maybe can speak more to this if you like, but just to flag, there are some statewide initiatives and mandates to already do ethnic studies curriculum. There's a lot of great work happening around anti-racism and racial equity within Hayward Unified School District, including some curricula around Russell City. So there could be some potential overlap when it comes to K through 12, not necessarily curricula when it comes to college. So I will, Dr. Cofield, when we get to, before we do public comment, I may just give you the floor if you'd like to share any other context that could be helpful for attendees. And thank you for being willing to get put on the spot for that and for being here and all the great work in Hayward. So we're going to do some polls before we start to have the conversation, but again, just want to kind of ground us in the layout for this proposal. So as you can see, that set of recommendations had a very wide range of ideas around heritage, from monuments to memorials to thinking about websites to developing curricula to developing books, developing a documentary. So a lot of different ideas for the city staff and also for city council. We don't want to assume what is the priority for you. So this is an opportunity in the next couple of sessions to get your feedback on what specifically should be done and how should that be done. So for example, if we have a city partner, at least within Hayward Unified School District, already doing ethnic studies curricula, already having some modules around Russell City, is that the priority that we want to bring before council for consideration relative to the other types of heritage preservation? So just some food for thought for you all. But this is a layout that we'll be channeling your feedback into should you have any trouble thinking about how to frame your ideas. So what we'll do is a series of 2 polls first, and they are a little duplicative, but we ask that you bear with us. First, we will ask for you to share in 2 words or less who should be eligible. If you have a second group, you can share that group in the second response. If you don't, you can leave it blank. This will help us frame the ranking survey that will happen at the end of the meeting. In the next question, you'll see you'll have a chance to expand more upon that. So if there's nuance to that, if you want to talk more about more of the specifics, that's fine. But this is just generally to get a bird's eye view of when we talk about heritage preservation programs, which there are a lot of different ideas, who should be benefiting from that. Is it everyone? Is it one group? Is it multiple groups? And before we do that, I just want to double check. I think there might be some folks with some technical issues. Yeah, so we will work on the technical issue, I think, to get one of our community members reattached, connected to the meeting. So we'll work on the access in just a second. Thank you for flagging that. We're now going to go into the second poll, and then we'll, as a poll is live, we'll work on that person who has a technical challenge with the access or was removed from the meeting. So now we're going to go ahead and launch, again, thinking about these ideas for heritage preservation, we'll launch a poll to get feedback on who you feel should be eligible. So please check out your screens and be sure to answer both parts of the question if you have 2 groups to recommend. So we're waiting for about 5 more responses. You have 22 of the 27 responses, and we'll give it just a minute. So we have 24 of the 28 attendees responding. We'll give you just another minute to complete the poll. So again, in the first part, who should be eligible? And if you have second groups, feel free who should be eligible. So we have about 85% participation. We'll take about 30 more seconds before closing the poll. So again, this is sharing who should benefit from the proposed heritage preservation ideas that we will refine shortly. And I think there's a question around the terminology. So we had the same kind of polling questions for all. So for example, some were business development support, some were home buyers or homeowners assistance program. In this case, the heritage preservation idea bucket is very large. So it could be anywhere from the ideas around K through 12 and collegiate students. It could be something like a monument that perhaps everyone's eligible to receive because it's in the public. So if you feel that this does not need an eligibility criteria, you're also welcome to share that. But this is just to get your initial ideas around who should be eligible. Okay, so in the next question, you will have more opportunities to expand upon these ideas. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. And we will continue to the second poll where you'll have a chance to break down more of your ideas. Just a second. Okay, great. And so you'll see the poll on the screen now. So basically, this is a chance to describe in more detail what you think this proposal should be. So some things you might consider are, how would you describe it? Is it a service? Is it a project? Is it a website? Is it a documentary? What do you think should be in the heritage preservation proposal? How do you think it should be implemented? Is this something where you think new art should be developed? Similar to what I shared about HUSD having some perhaps overlapping projects. And I'm going to invite Dr. Cofield up in just a minute to share a little bit about that. Some of you may also know there's a Russell City Art Committee working to do to bring art to Hayward around Russell City. So is this something that is duplicating something that already exists, or is there a unique lane that you want to be proposed as a reparative justice projects? If it's time bound, how long should it be happening? Is it one time? If you have ideas about why it's justified, feel free to share it. And you can also expand upon who should be eligible. So we'll give you about 10 minutes to think through this. We have 28 people on the call, so we would love to see 100% participation and are going to give you a few minutes to think through your ideas. I will give you some silent thinking time, but I'll give you a time check when we're closer to 2 minutes and 1 minute. Thank you. So it's been about 10 minutes and we have 11 responses so far of the 27 attendees. So we will leave this poll open for about 5 more minutes. It sometimes takes a bit more time to think through the ideas. So if you have not done so already, please try to complete your answer in the next 5 minutes. Thank you. So this is a 2-minute heads up. If you have not completed your answer, please take the next 2 minutes to complete your answer. We have 65% participation with 19 of the 29 attendees having completed this survey question so far. All right, everyone, took about 16 minutes, so we'll continue on. We had 22 of the 29 attendees respond. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And I know a 23rd person sent responses in the chat. So we will now close this poll for you all. Okay, so we are going to transition in just a moment to public comment, and I'll be bringing up my colleague Eric to facilitate that. But first, I wanted to bring up my colleague, Dr. Candace Cofield. Dr. Candace Cofield is the Administrator on Special Assignment for Equity and Anti-Racism for the Hayward Unified School District. And I just want to give Dr. Cofield a minute or two to share a bit more context to some of her work with racial study and ethnic studies, and in particular, how it may overlap with Russell City. So Dr. Cofield, you have the floor. Thank you. Dr. Cofield, I'm not sure if we can hear you. I see that you're unmuted. We'll give you just a second. And I think you should be good to go to unmute.
Okay. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you, Dr. Cofield. Go right ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm thankful that I can be in community with you all. Like Ms. Ayankoya said, I work for the Hayward Unified School District and I support our focus on equity and anti-racism. So for us, that's our anti-biased, anti-racist work. And part of that work involves expanding our ethnic studies program. So we've been working at making sure that our staff understand what ethnic studies is and how to expand it. And last year in particular, we focused on locally responsive approaches to ethnic studies. So we co-designed with our educators a unit around Russell City for our secondary students. So that would work for our 7th through 12th graders. And this year, we want to do an elementary version. So we've already started recruiting educators and we have a plan in place where we will have a version that would be basically age appropriate for grades K through 6. So that's some of the work that's connected to what we're talking about this evening, and happy to hear all these exciting and really, really incredible opportunities to continue honoring what happened with Russell City and let its legacy live on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cofield. Thanks for being willing to be put on the spot, and thanks for all that you do within the city of Hayward for youth as well as staff working in education. So we will continue now to the best part, which is where we hear from you all. Thank you for submitting your written feedback. If you are not able to submit feedback in writing, feel free to use the chat. We'll now bring up my colleague, Eric Pearson, who will facilitate the public comment for heritage preservation. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Hello again, everyone. This is the time when we'd like to hear from you all. We're asking that each person limit themselves to no more than 2 comments per proposal. We have a 2-minute time limit, and you will see that timer on the screen. The focus here is to make comments rather than questions and answers. So please, if you'd like to speak, you can click the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. If you're on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And for anyone who, if we do have anyone in the Spanish room, when you first begin speaking, please say Spanish room and we will make sure that everything gets recorded correctly. Right, and I am not seeing any hands raised at this time. So if you have any, oh, okay, we do have a comment from Priscilla. Priscilla, can you unmute yourself?
Hello.
Hello, we hear you.
Okay, I think this poll is pretty it's a nice poll that actually lets you tell what we think is some of the things that would that our heritage would be like I'm nervous, I can't talk. Anyway, I think that the school is excellent what you're doing with the school to try to teach our children, you know, how it was in the past, and also that we should not be racist and we should not take advantage of people that are not able to defend themselves. And one of the things that I'm interested in is that a website that we had talked about. I'm part of the group that we had before, where people can actually upload pictures, can interviews or whatever. So anybody that is interested in Russell City can look at things, you know, in the future, the grandkids or whatever, they could know more about Russell City. And I think we talked about that before, that maybe the city of Hayward would control that website. And that's about it, you know, and what we have at the park and the various areas where we could have pictures. And there was an arch being proposed in Russell City at Hesperian and Winton. Thank you for allowing me to talk, but I'm kind of nervous. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for your comments. Okay, next we have Frank. Frank, can you unmute yourself?
Hello, Eric. How you doing?
Ed, how are you?
Thank you. I'd like to comment on heritage, preservation of our heritage. What do we need to do? A mural on the site, maybe a monument of some kind to remember what was going on Russell City. I was lucky to be a youngster when I was 70 years old, and I met Vivian Mama Thornton. Dad said, "Come on, our they used to call it something else, Russell City Boulevard, Winton. That's what it is now." So Dad brought me into the place, and he exercised. He knew that Mom was be playing there on the porch, and then I got to meet the lady as part of the history stuff. He's working on a place called the Country Club, right on the boulevard, and but big people got to say B.B. King was there. The blind guy, can't. I had a stroke for 4 years now. It means the names, but it big time stuff happening in Hayward of Russell City, the section. That's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. All right, next we have Esben.
Hi,
Esben, can
you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Good evening to everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would just like to share my thoughts this evening that there should be an establishment of an arts and cultural commission to preserve and present the story of the history and the diversity of Russell City. And this can be done through visual and or audio video presentation. This commission can further develop and implement the ways in which the heritage of Russell City can be preserved and presented for public viewing. Um, there were many ethnicities that lived in harmony, in Russell City, and a lot of those elders of those different groups are still alive today. And I think that it would be important to establish this commission so that we could capture some of the spirit of the community back then, and also to allow those individuals in the commission to share certain things from a cultural perspective, such as like food and recipes, music and dance, and other things to show, the different backgrounds and the different diversities of all the different groups that were part of the community of Russell City at that time, so that school children as well as the general public can be able to see and benefit from such a beautiful history. And this should be done while a lot of the elders are still living, to be able to tell those stories directly, and they can tell it in their own words and tell it from their own experience. That's about all I have to say. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any more hands. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, we have Deborah Harris. Deborah, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak. I just wanted to tag on to what Esmond just said. I think I hear a lot about ethnic studies, and I thought that was just for a certain group of people, but Russell City was a community, and there were many, many different ethnic groups there. And I feel that if anything is going to be done, if any information is going to be shared with the other generations and in the schools or whatever, that they should have the accurate information. I mean, we have published information from all of the meetings that were held with the city council or wherever they were, the transcript and all that. Okay, we got that. But we haven't heard the stories. And a lot of stuff that comes across, we had music, and we had churches, and we had different things going on in Russell City for the young people and for the adults. So if any of this is going to be shared for future generations, it should be the truth, and not something that someone read or someone's idea. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Next, we have iPhone Leonard. All right. Leonard, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, residents and former descendants of residents of Russell City. My great-grandparents came over there and established their spread, and we were the last ones to leave. And I recall my mom saying that the Winton Avenue should have been named Russell City Avenue. And people had mentioned that in those decades, and it was denied, as so many other things were denied. And some of the streets like Cabot, and there's other streets along through the branches as you go along, would be nice to have, like Ohio Street in Nebraska. Yeah, but that's something that is offered. I think it would be a great idea. And also a monument, a granite monument would be nice to establish the names of the residents and descendants. That would be nice. And I don't know if we're going to get any money out of this, but that would be nice to do those two suggestions, and possibly something to be added to the museum for Russell City to be added. I'm sure many of us right now in our mind's eye remember Russell School and the tracks and the other junkyards, the auto shops, and all that. Santucci's Ranch and the smell in the morning from Santucci's Ranch. We live right down the street from Santucci's. The trucks would come in down that dirt road and would yell at them, "Hey, Santucci!" The pigs would come out and come into my great grandparents' spread. That sort of stuff. It would be nice to bring these fellas into the picture. So that's my point. That's my view. And I had a good time out there in Russell City. I went to Russell School for a couple of years, and they shut it down. I went to Linda Vista. My brothers and sisters went to Bohannon and Arroyo until we were eventually chased out of there. The very last ones to leave, too. That's my part. That's what I have to say, and look forward to the outcome here.
All right, thank you. Can you do me a favor? Can you please state your name so we have for the record?
Oh, yes, Leonard Ancona. Leonard Ancona.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
I think we have Zenobia with her hand raised, and I see Connie just raised a hand as well.
Oh, okay. I see them now. So I have Zenobia next. Zenobia, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes. Okay. Hi, I'm Zenobia Kimball Mills, but and I'm a resident, and my parents live there, so I guess I'm a descendant also. I was just thinking as people were talking, something came up to me. When we went on a historical tour of Alabama, they had a phone box that you could go into and tell your story of what racism was, what you experienced. But I was thinking, what about having a box, something like that, where people could go to the Hayward Historical Society and tell their story of Russell City and their experience. So that would be a way of collecting true history as opposed to somebody who was secondhand or third-hand information, but people who actually live there, or children of parents who actually live there, and have them tell the stories that they was handed down to them. And that's it. That's what I was just thinking in terms of if you wanted to collect oral history, and that can be used also, tapes could be used for the classroom that the teacher was talking about to carry on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zenobia. Next, we have Connie. Connie, you should be able to unmute.
How's that?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, I'm in agreement with tying in with the Hayward Historical Society. About 20 years ago, we had a public forum in the old building downtown. And it was interesting because Mr. Russell's daughters were there. So they taped that session, and there was about maybe 50 people in attendance that had oral histories. All this is on record. And I think that's the way to go, because there were so many little snippets of life and memories that were really priceless, and some quite revealing about what was going on. So yeah, the Historical Society would be a great collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. All right, I'm not seeing any more hands. Anybody else like to speak at this time? All right, I do not see any more hands. I think we may be ready to move on.
Okay, thank you kindly, Eric. And you all will be hearing from Eric shortly as we get to public comment for the next topic. So thank you all for sharing your feedback. We will now move on to talking about the ideas around the community center and community benefit programs. Again, similar to the last topic, this is a combination of several different ideas, and we are trying to really refine what is the priority for this proposal, which will be the 10th and last proposal. So we'll start with the recommendations that overlapped from the list of 26 recommendations. So first, there was a recommendation to create a Russell City Community Center. So establishing a center, this idea specifically set within the old Russell City boundaries to foster community development, well-being, social interaction, education, and recreation. So this idea of a space with several different types of programs and services to some extent. There also was an idea for environmental justice and health initiatives. So thinking about promoting environmental justice and overall community health through specialty clinics, and that mental health resources should be tailored to address both historic and current challenges. Again, a lot of the earlier recommendations were written in the idea of repairing harm. I think one thought for some of this is if there's a service who's providing that, and if it's a specialty type of service like mental health, is that duplicating things that may exist at other levels, or is there a desire to truly invest in new resources, new clinicians solely for Russell City? And then the last one talks about basically infrastructure developments. So speaking to the fact that restoration requires more than returning lands, it also calls for equipping them with modern amenities and services for residents and descendants. So you can see there's a broad range of ideas. I did want to go back to one from the last area that may also spark ideas. It touched on the idea of a cultural center. So if you look at the very last recommendation here, which we just spoke about with the heritage preservation, the idea of a Russell City cultural heritage preservation, towards the bottom, you'll see that some of the key initiatives that were recommended were having a dedicated cultural center. So community center, there are ideas around community center, around cultural programs, around health programs, environmental programs, and we really want to refine and clarify what the priority is for this group so that the proposal represents what you think should be put forward as a reparative justice solution. And then there was one recommendation from a steering committee member. There's a lot of information here, so I will try to summarize it and you all can read it for yourselves on the screen. So it spoke to the idea of a Russell City Community Center within the old boundaries of Russell City, having that be a space that is owned and debt-free and also managed by a community-led group, perhaps a nonprofit. And there are several specific ideas about what that space could look like. So considering a multi-purpose venue, having parking, having a capacity for at least 500 people seated, having administrative offices, a box office, stage, dance floor, and a series of other amenities for events. having at least 3 conference rooms so that it could be a space for conferences, also having a tech center, having a childcare center, and also a healthcare clinic. Specifically thinking about healthcare, again, within the idea of health programs, repairing the harm of physical and or mental challenges caused by, in this case, they spoke specifically to toxic environments that the elders would have been exposed to. So a lot of different ideas across the two. I think I would just encourage for consideration, if we're talking about nonprofits, are there people willing and interested in starting a new nonprofit? Or is this more a recommendation to work with existing nonprofits? If we're talking about healthcare services or environmental justice programs, what does that actually mean? And what is the level of expertise needed to implement that? And then if it's cultural programs, what does that mean for you all? So a lot of different ideas. I would say this is a chance to clarify what is the priority. And if you, for example, have other priorities, like I know we intentionally sequence our town halls in order of the priority that we could assess, from like the highest topics like general basic income, property restoration, thinking about housing initiatives. That has been discussed because it seemed to be a higher priority. But if you feel that this actually is not reparative, it's okay to say that. However, if you do have ideas about what should be proposed, it's really helpful for us to further clarify, because the ideas are very expansive when it comes to what could be possible. So you all are very familiar with this template. Again, this is the way we will be writing out the actual proposal. So some ideas to think about as you wrap your heads around what we've heard so far around community center or other community programs that benefit the public. What specifically are we recommending? For how long? How is it helpful? What specific steps do you think need to be taken? Are there specific partners or types of partners that a recommendation like this should consider? And then also you'll have a chance to weigh in on who should be eligible. So just like last time, we will do a 2-part poll, first starting with an initial poll on who should benefit from this proposal. So it's a big bucket of center and program. So in thinking about that, we're going to launch a poll. There's 2 parts again. So in just 2 words or less, sharing for us who should be eligible for whatever comes of this. And if you have a second group, you can put that in the second line. So we'll take about maybe 3 minutes just so we can try to get you all out of here by 7:30. And then we'll make sure we have enough time for the next question, which will be your opportunity to expand upon that. So please feel free to share who should be eligible for this benefit. We have about 12 people who have not responded, so please take about 1 more minute to share who you think should be eligible for either community center and or community benefit programs. All right, we have about 72% participation. So we will close out this poll and open up the next one, which will give you an opportunity to share your thoughts on the description. So before we, okay, so as we prepare for that, I just want to share a few questions for consideration, again, in thinking about how to really refine what is being proposed. What specifically would you want to see in a description? How would you want to see this proposal described? If you have any details about why you think it's justified or why you think it's helpful or who you think should benefit, feel free to expand upon that now. So we'll give it about, let's do 10 minutes. So we have about 20 minutes for discussion and public comment. And if need be, we can take more time and go over, but I know folks probably want their dinner. So please try to finish in the next with your thoughts. We will take about 3 more minutes before closing this poll. We have 13 of the now 26 respondents completing the poll. So please take about 2 to 3 more minutes to send your thoughts. So we have about 65% participation. We'll give it 1 more minute before closing the poll. So if you have not done so already, please complete your final thoughts and press submit to record your answers. Okay, we have about 73% participation, so thank you all for sending your written feedback. We will close the poll now and prepare for public comment. Okay, so now I would like to bring my colleague Eric back up to facilitate public comment on the ideas around the community center and community benefit programs. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. All right, hello again, everyone. So now is the time to make any comments on the benefits associated with the community centers being discussed. So if you'd like to speak, please go ahead and click on raise hand at the bottom of the screen. If you are listening on a phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. So this is the time we would like to hear from you all. So if you'd like to speak, please click raise hand. Okay, Priscilla, please unmute yourself.
Yes. I think it's a great idea. And the only thing that I'm concerned is the way you put it, that you would give it to an individual to manage as a nonprofit. And I believe that it would be better to have a committee, because just one individual might not be too possessive of the property itself. So if you have a committee of maybe about 5 people, that would manage somebody that is business savvy, and have the other people also be part of the nucleus of Russell City descendants or residents, and only one person per family, rather than have 2, 3, 4 people in a family manage the place. That's the only thing that I would feel that a committee would be a lot better. And cater to some of the senior necessities, give them some social activities, and preventing falls and that kind of stuff, because they're the people that suffer in Russell City, and the rest of us are just reaping some of the benefits that they will be getting. And the suffering was not done by the descendants, it was done by the people that live there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Priscilla. Next, we have Deborah. Deborah, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, did I do it?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. The community center, I have mixed thoughts on that, because most of the community centers that I've seen is all new construction. And so it would be, something would have to be built, and that will take a while and a lot of money and time. And to put it, and I think the proposal was to put it in Russell City. Well, what are you going to do with all the companies that are there? You're going to make them give up their land so you can have a community center? I just have I have thoughts about that. I'm not exactly on board with that. And a lot of the amenities that they want, it seems to me that the city, or there are other organizations that have those benefits available to people, you know, where you can they can sign up, you have to qualify for it and whatever, you know. So I'm not too fond of that one. And as far as nonprofit, the if this were to take place, the nonprofit should have a committee. It should not be a family-only organization. It should be a committee, and if it's going to be for Russell City community, then the community should be the ones that make the vote and decide who's over it, and they should be the ones to apply for it. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen either, because this whole process is for people who live there. And the ones that are asking for all of these things didn't live there, a lot of them. So I'm just kind of on the fence. But thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. All right, I don't see any more hands. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay, we have Zenobia. Please unmute yourself.
All right. Yes, I'm in agreement with Deborah. I think that that proposal is sort of a waste of time and energy, because I think that some of the other things that we have discussed would be more appropriate, or more, it would benefit the word I'm looking for. What we are trying to do is to tell about Russell City, and I think that the community, what is it? The community center would not be as beneficial as the heritage preservation and other things that we have since talked about. That's all I'm just saying. So yeah, I just do not believe that the time and energy to be put into that would be worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Zenobia. All right, is there anyone else who'd like to speak? No? All right, I don't see any more hands.
Okay, well, there are no more comments for verbal public comment. Thank you so much, Eric, again for facilitating, and thank you for those who made comments. So we are nearing the end of our meeting and have a few more things to go through. And we'll try to get you out of here as promised by 7:30. So now I'd like to share some of the next steps. So as it pertains to the, oh, actually, sorry, let's go back. I see there's someone with a hand raised with a 510 number ending in 341. Okay, you should be able to unmute. If you could just share your name before speaking, that would be great.
My name is Velda Go.
Hi, Velda. Go right ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry, I just got through with work, so I'm late today.
No problem, Velda. We were just wrapping up public comment, so you would be the last one. So you'll have up to 2 minutes to share your thoughts on the community center and public benefit or community benefit programs idea. So feel free to start, and your time will start when you begin speaking.
Great. I wanted to recommend that the city approve the community center, because what was lost through Russell City was a sense of place, location. So by having a Russell City Community Center, the community can be reestablished in Russell City as a gathering place to bring the unification of the Russell City community back together. And in this center, it should be able to serve a multitude of purposes in addition to meeting places, healthcare center, child care center, financial counseling, training and workshops, as well as a entertainment space for productions and for family reunions that could be a source of income where everyone in the community could rent the space as a income stream for maintenance. And the building should be able to accommodate, in my mind, at least 500 people. So that will be a sizable benefit for family gatherings, reunions, meetings, or any other need that may be available. And I'm hoping that this will be approved as establishing a place, because now Russell City community is only meeting in a park. And I think we need to build the community back up by having a place, a building, an established community center in Russell City. Thank you.
Thank you, Velda. Appreciate your comments. So now we will conclude with some of our next steps and some important dates for you all to think about. So as I started to mention, we are on the road to City Council conversations, first starting with a work session to receive and review these implementation proposals, and then concluding with a legislative business item to actually make a determination on the 10 proposals being brought forward. So please flag these dates. We have Tuesday, November 19th for the work session, and then Tuesday, December 3rd for the determination meeting. These meetings will be held at City Hall at 777 B Street on the second floor in the City Council chambers. If you check the City of Hayward website, there are instructions for how to participate virtually, including making public comment virtually. So if you want to share your input outside of these town hall conversations and outside of what staff will bring forward, you can feel free to reach out to City Council. We do encourage you to make public comment if you feel so inclined to share your thoughts. But if you want to just more follow along and see what the city is going to do, these are the dates to save in your calendar. So please do so. And we also invite you to tell others in the community or other stakeholders who might be interested. So public comment is still ongoing. There are going to be a total of 6 more proposals to weigh in public comment. That is really meant to refine the draft proposals. So what we do is take your feedback from this conversation, and based on what's said, how many people are saying it, and the overall themes, try our best to draft a proposal that represents the largest amount of ideas or the highest priorities within those ideas. So you will see a batch of 4 public comment surveys launching likely on Monday or Tuesday of next week. Those will be for the August conversation, so scholarships and grants, pathway programs, thinking about on-the-job training, fellowships, internship programs, business development support and priority, as well as homeowner and home buyers assistance programs. The proposals from tonight's conversation will likely follow a few weeks after that. So we encourage you to share your input. That is a chance to make sure we got it right as best we can when it comes to reflecting your feedback. And it'll be a chance for those who could not attend this town hall or other town halls to weigh in and give their input. For public comment, you can visit our portal website. So we can drop that in the chat for you. You can also just search Russell City, City of Hayward. That page will have updates. So as we conclude the town halls and have more updates to share with you, we will email those who signed up for the project list. We'll also post that on the project portal website. The project portal will also be where you can find things like our Russell City map, which will be an interactive map to show the past and present view of what was Russell City and what's there now. If you've been to these town halls, you know that I've been sharing that this map will share the names of folks who owned property in Russell City. It will also share the type of document that the City of Hayward is aware of to prove that someone owned a property. So there definitely are gaps. For example, if I was a tenant and I did not own property, this would probably reflect my landlord owning the property rather than myself. but it is a way to get an understanding of where Russell City was and what's there now. If you, for any reason, do not want your family information shared, please visit the website. There's a survey to opt. Do plan to launch the map by the first work session. So that way the resource, which, we first heard from community members, from our steering committee, we're trying to be responsive to that and leverage our resources within the city of Hayward to support this city-led process, or sorry, community-led process. But then also want to make sure that if people do not feel comfortable, you can consent to opting out of this, consent to being a part of this. So the default would be to include the records that we have. They are public records that anyone could access if they know where to look for them. But if you know you don't want your name listed, you don't want to be tied to Russell City, let us know and we will be happy to remove your information. Please note that we know for many there are multiple folks in the family. So if any one person is not comfortable with the information of the family being listed, it will be removed from the map. And so before we close, we do want to take a moment to do a ranking survey. So I just want to double check the chat for any last questions before we get to that though. As a reminder, the ranking survey is a chance to rank who could be eligible for the proposed benefits. So today was probably a bit more of a challenging one because both proposals had a range of ideas. So we won't be able to say what the final sort of idea being put in the proposal is until we get a chance to analyze your feedback and your polls. But if you have been following the conversation, this is a chance for you to say, okay, if that is approved, this is who should benefit. There were some questions in the chat. So I think from one person would like to see the dates again. I'll go back to that. So just as a reminder, if you want to take a screenshot, this also will be emailed out and it can be found on all the recordings from the first 4 town halls. Tuesday, November the 19th at 7 p.m. Pacific time will be the work session to review the proposals, the final proposals that we're requesting council to make a yay or nay decision on, possibly modifying. We'll see what comes of that. And then the December 2nd meeting will be, it'll be listed as a legislative business item. So that will be a conversation where we are seeking a council determination on the actions. And then I think as far as the question around the communication for the dates, this will be shared. We do have the information, I believe, online on the website. We will also email everyone who signed up for the Russell City list as we get closer to the date with reminders about the city council meetings. But we know that word of mouth is a very powerful tool. We have about 26 people present now. I think the highest number we had tonight was 31. So if you know of cousins, uncles, aunties, grannies, grandpas, friends, feel free to start spreading the word that if you want to be present, want to be represented, want to make public comment, you can start to plan around these 2 dates. And again, if you're not in the Bay Area, there is an option to participate online. And then there's some questions for specific folks about documents. I'll just flag that, again, none of the proposals have been approved. So having, for example, a past document on file does not necessarily verify people lived in Russell City or that their ancestors lived there. We also know that with the map, there's some public documents available, not everything. So when we launch the GIS map, that will be a chance to double check that all your records are there. Currently, the prototype version that we have does not have names listed because we didn't want to have personal information disclosed if people were not comfortable being a part of it. But for those who are inquiring about your specific family members or information being included, please give us a couple weeks to launch the tool. You're welcome to email us at the email address that we can put in the chat again, and we can help you double check. But in the coming weeks, we'll be prioritizing finalizing the tool so it can be made available for everyone. And hopefully when it goes live, you see that. But if you have sent in documents to the city of Hayward, they should be reflected, and we can help to confirm that if for some reason it's missing. But again, to reiterate, having verification and eligibility protocols may look like more than what we've had available so far. This is just an early attempt to respond to community advice on how we might leverage City of Hayward resources for this process, and also to get a sense of who is the community of Russell City. So with that, we're going to go to our final surveys of the night. There'll be 2 there. So first, we'll ask you to rank who should be eligible for heritage preservation proposal items, and then we'll go into the community center and benefit program. So please be sure to do both. You can select up to 3 groups that should be eligible. So we'll first launch the ranking survey for heritage preservation.
Is there a way to vote if you're a call-in?
Hi, Voda. We can send you an email following to vote.
Thank you.
No worries. We have about 69% participation, so please take about 1 more minute to complete the ranking poll on who should be eligible for the heritage preservation proposal. Please take about 30 more seconds to complete your answer before we close the poll, and we will share the results. Okay, we have about 78% participation. I know at least one person will be sending feedback via email. So we will go ahead and end the poll, and I will briefly share the results of what you all said. So you can see on your devices some of the results. So you'll see that for heritage preservation, the top group named, which has been a very consistent theme throughout all 5 town halls, has been the residents or former residents, with 15 of the 18 respondents saying that is who should benefit from a heritage preservation initiative. We also have 13 of the 18 respondents, so 72% saying descendants. We have, let's see, 4 out of 18 saying no one, 3 out of 18 saying business owners, 1 out of 18 saying the general public, and about 5 saying property owners. So it seems like a pretty broad range of possible groups that could benefit from heritage preservation programs. And now we will launch our last poll, which will be an opportunity for you to rank who should be eligible for a community center and or public benefit programs. So again, based on what you heard today, please select up to 3 groups that should be eligible and take about, let's say, 2 to 3 minutes to get your response in. Thank you. We have 70% participation and about 6 more people who have not responded. So if you would like to respond, please take about 1 more minute to get your feedback in before we close the poll. All right, everyone, we've been holding steady at about 75%. I see we're up to 79%. So we are going to go ahead and close this poll and share some of the feedback so you all can see this on your devices. So you will see that we had 13 people say that both former residents and descendants should benefit from a community center and or community benefit programs. So about 68% of respondents. 5 people, which is 26% of respondents, said no one. 4 people, 21%. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Let me just give me 1 second, sorry. Regina, do you mind closing out while I try to fix my technical issue?
Sure, you want me to close out?
Okay, is my sound back? Or no sound?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Thank y'all for bearing with me. It has been a little journey, but I'm glad we made it to this conversation. So I'll pull down the slides in a second and we'll ask the team to come on camera. But just want to say thank you all so much to the community members, the members of the public who spent these 2+ hours with us. Your time is very valuable. And so is the input. We do appreciate it. We know this has been a long process, and we hope that you feel seen and heard in what gets proposed to City Council. I also just want to really thank the team who supported tonight's town hall. So Louisa, our Spanish interpreter, Eric Pearson, thank you so much for public comment. Tim Loans, who's been really integral for every single town hall, and also our assistant city manager, Regina Youngblood. Thank you so much. And with that, we will close the meeting. You all have a great night.